All right, we're gonna get tonight started. Thanks for coming, everybody, to the Molalla River School District Work Session, October 24th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just before public comment, I'd like to just share with everybody that the district received a media inquiry asking for our response to a social media post that was put out last night by the mayor. And I just want to share our response that we sent to the media, just so that the whole board's aware if you haven't read it yet. And we just want to make sure that the public's aware as well. So the Molalla River School Board values its relationship with the city of Molalla. Molalla River School District has leased a portion of its property to the city of Molalla for $1 per year for over 25 years. The most recent lease agreement expires on March 22nd, 2025. It includes a new clause that states, the lessor intends that the lease will not be renewed unless the parties can manually agree on rent. Negotiations on rent terms have not occurred, but in the past year, the school board has listened to our community, who told us we should manage our resources more efficiently before asking the citizens for more money, and sold surplus properties to raise funds for safety improvements at the elementary schools and high school, and sought and obtained voter support to address safety by replacing the middle school, and responded to every city of Molalla communication regarding the property. The Molalla River School Board values partnership and community. The school board meetings are public and the city of Molalla is always welcome. Due to a critical bond project report, the school board asked the city to reschedule a presentation from tonight to November 21st. The Molalla River School Board is fiscally responsible and transparent in the management of all resources. The Molalla River School District pays fair market value for shared services from the city, such as the school resource officer. The district does not want the library to move, yet as stewards of public resources, desires reasonable rent for the use of the property. So I just wanted to share that and get it out there for the public. So next we will move on to public comment. And Jimmy Lanahan. Good evening.
I want to thank you very much for that update. That was something I was very curious about, and being that I come to these meetings so much, I was already pretty much privy to what you just said was what I gleaned was the case. I support the board's decision in that. I support the board for sharing with the community its resources and its partnerships that it's had with the city. And I definitely value the IGA with the resource officer. I mean, that's priceless. I'm here tonight to encourage everybody to vote. Vote early. The election is upon us. Our local elections have many things that are property tax ridden. Everybody just got the property taxes. Vote accordingly. I'm also here tonight to share a challenge with you. I will be coming in the next month and the months thereafter to continue to challenge you to adapt and to make changes to the special education department. If nothing changes, nothing changes. My son's been in the district for 11 years and we're still getting the same outcomes. It seems every time that I feel like we're in a safe place and I put my defenses down, another barrier jumps up and slaps me right in the face. And if it's slapping me right in the face, it's definitely doing more to my son. I believe that we can come up with solutions where we can get better outcomes. And even if our solutions don't work and we keep trying, we'll find something. And if we do it together, we're bound to succeed. Lastly, I want to wish Director Cummings best wishes. Feel better. We miss you. We'll see you soon. That's all I have.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay. Consider any changes to the agenda. Anyone? Moving on, we have information and discussion with a design update from the OPSIS team.
Directors, I just want to tee this up a little bit and introduce our architectural firm folks who are here. I know you've already met at an earlier meeting when we brought before the board the contract that we negotiated after a public procurement process. Been really pleased with OPSIS's work right out of the gates. A lot of work's been happening, and we want to make sure that the board is the first body to hear information, right? We're going to be communicating as well with Bond Oversight Committee and hearing voices in the community as well. But we want to be here tonight and start with the board, and I'm going to turn it over to our team, Alec Holzer and Steve Nelson.
You push all the right buttons so it shows up over there. Need to be over there just to share. I'll just over here just to get the buttons. About to show up.
Well, welcome back. We're very excited.
Yeah, we are too. We have been meeting every week since just the beginning of September for at least 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours every Tuesday. And it has been super fun and super fast. So it's good that we're getting this update today because things are moving right along and they have to meet the schedule that's put forward for these projects so that we can all move into them on the time schedule that we're looking for. And we're almost there, except it's not a presentation yet.
This piece of software, sorry.
Okay, let's see. View. And presentation. Hey, there it goes, and it's gonna show up. Although it's all behind most of some of you, behind some of you. Yeah, we all know where the school is, so we don't need to do that part. Okay, you want to start that off, Tony?
You bet, and I'll give one more context here. Certainly board members are aware. Most of the community probably are as well, but just to set the table. Really, what you see in front of you are the commitments that were made in the bond language as we put the bond before the voters. And that set of commitments were built on a lot of community voice that came over to your period from the pre-bond advisory group. This language really then informs the next step on our work with the architectural firm. You see safety and security, which was referenced earlier, is a top theme. Efficiency is a top theme. And of course, our primary purpose of teaching and learning, and within that, expanded learning opportunities. You'll see evidence of this work that touches on all these here tonight. I'll probably chime in at different points. We're all going to play off of each other because we've had different pieces of this, but at the end and or in between, if folks have questions, this is an open workshop, open work session. There actually may be a spot here later tonight where we're actually going to invite you out of your chairs too. So back to you.
Yeah, so really this project is all about at this stage of balancing. We have all these, we have the education needs as Tony just talked about. We obviously have costs, we have the space needs that have come forward and the budget that we have. And then somewhere along the line, we actually have to get this building permit and get started. So the process is always one of achieving balance, not letting any one thing get out in front of the other. So as a result, we have a number of consultants on board. And you're going to hear a little bit about bringing the contractor on board here a little bit later. So the schedule we're on.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there a decision matrix on which of those components we're least flexible on? For example, budget.
Yes.
So is there there's a name for it that project managers use. I'm drawing a blank on it, but budget, scope. Am I getting ahead of myself a bit?
But we have a risk register that we're
constantly working through on this project, and we try to look at all of those aspects on the previous slide as equal components to the project that's gonna create a successful project at the end. So things like schedule and budget can't, those are it, they're hard and fast. As far as space requirements, those things can have ebb and flow to make sure that we're maximizing the tools that we have available to us.
So what you could see here is that if we think about this process, the very first part is really about listening, and that's the majority of what we've done over the month of September and into the beginning of October. And that's trying to gather all the information, get more in depth in understanding what the needs are. And so we're just about to move into the next phase, which is what we call schematic design, where we're starting to create concepts, and we're going to see some of that today. We'll be going through that schematic phase where we're figuring out what the buildings, you'll see some of that through the end of this year into December. And then after that, we'll be moving what we call design development. And that's once we have a design, we'll be looking to say a concept, it's all figured out. We'll be getting all those balancing. We'll get original cost estimates. We'll get all of these things together. That's when the really balancing is probably going to happen, because in the December viewpoint, we have costs, we have program, we have all of those pieces coming together. And that's where we got to make decisions around exactly what this building's going to be. After that, we're moving into a little more of a production cycle in terms of developing documents that eventually get into construction documents in the summer, and then essentially a year from now going out and starting the construction. So that's kind of the overall process. Maybe do you want to, Tony, just hit in on this a little bit, how we're going to communicate during this time?
Yeah. Perfect. And sort of this idea of communication and listening has, as I said a bit ago, started way back when we did the pre-bond process. One example that you'll see touched on here a little bit later is, it's a concrete example. We heard loud and clear, do not Molalla River School District give us a building with fewer square feet of gymnasium space than we currently have. That was one concrete specific piece of voice that we heard. Along with many other pieces we heard, we fed that information to the team at OPSIS. So you'll begin to see in a schematic layout gymnasium space that replicates and actually creates a much more efficient use of that gymnasium space. That's just one example of how what we heard 2 years ago is present and on the table. Other work that has happened in this listening phase that OPSIS has done with the project team has included meeting with Tony Tiano, who reviewed and produced a facility specs document that lays out all of the specifications from, and this is not my area of expertise, so Tony, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but like faucets, right? The type of faucet that we'll find in a sink, right? It spells out those kinds of standards. Is that a fair example, Tony?
Down the HVAC, flooring,
so the facility specs were one document that was fed to the architectural team. The other document was the educational specifications, right? What are the program, what's the design of time and space? What are the number of periods in a day? And how much instructional space do we need given to career technical education? How much instructional space do we need for science? Do we need additional science lab prep space? All of those technical elements of what it takes to educate middle schoolers in a developmentally appropriate building are something that Randy and I worked on. And in this process, we're also listening initially here, but much more in the coming weeks to staff as well. So an example is a week from now, we're going to be engaging in a work session with staff to look at very specific elements of the academic program and the larger footprint of the facility. So one example is looking at the number of fields and field placement. And we have invited our president of Molalla Sports to join myself, our athletic director, here in this planning meeting, where we're going to look at conceptual layout of fields. So one conceptual layout. Another place is, hearing specifically from our fine and performing arts teachers. We're going back and forth around can we and do we need a dedicated choir room and a dedicated instrumental music room? Or is it a single shared use room? How are we scheduling courses? What does that look like? That's just one example. What else in the ed specs, Mr. Dalton?
2D, 3D art. Neighborhood.
Thanks for hitting on that, this idea of neighborhoods. That was in the pre-bond language too, right? I think we used the word pod back then. I kind of like the word neighborhood myself, and I shopped it by a number of folks, right? Pod, whatever, because that could be a pea pod, it could be a bunch of things, right? But a neighborhood communicates community together. So right now we're talking about these being neighborhoods that are grade specific, where sixth graders have a space where they've got their core subjects that are just sixth grade students. And seventh grade and eighth grade are in a shared space of the building, a little more connected to each other, but away from the sixth graders in some of these structural designs. So this is very conceptual, and tonight is really about the process we're going through. There's no sort of final anything here yet. This is the process and where we are in looking at the resources. Maybe I said too much, Steve, or I took part of your thunder, Alec, but I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, so how do we do that? It's a lot about communication. So as we're talking next week, we'll be talking again with the athletic director. We're going to be looking, we have these things we call them room data sheets, and we take every single room and look at it as if it were just what is the most functional, best use of that space, so that we don't compromise it when we put them all together. We want to make sure that each space is worked out, that the furniture works out in a science lab. So we'd be reviewing that with the science teachers, with the project team, the administrators, to say, yeah, this is the right size science lab. It has the right number of sinks, has all the things. And so that becomes our specification for a science lab. Sometimes in an architectural process, I've seen it where, you know, you get a box and then somebody says, oh, now I can't fit the sinks in there. The furniture doesn't fit. It won't hold 32 students if we have that kind of enrollment in the space. So we want to make sure that the spaces work functionally. Then we can put them together to create an overall design. So this is a pretty involved process. Being able to figure out all, that's an example, just one couple examples. Again, there are like 30, 40 of these for each room, talking about what those space needs are. And as Tony mentioned, we've been doing most of that with the project core team, and then starting next week, we'll be meeting with staff, with teachers and others to actually go through these spaces individually and hear their voices and respond to what they're seeing in terms of the information we've pulled together. Any questions on that before go ahead?
I was going to add one other piece, just back on that earlier slide of where we are in time, this listening space. Over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be taking what we're talking about with the board here tonight, so that the board hears it first, but then we are also taking it out to share with parents, for example, at existing community events, bingo nights and so forth, giving parents, kids an opportunity to take a look, have myself or Andrea, principal, there to answer questions and to hear their voice and their feedback. Now, it's important to say we don't, I've learned this from people smarter than myself. You don't design buildings by, you don't design schools by a large committee or by community vote, but hearing everybody's voices is so critical. So we're going to be taking out and having these conversations with folks in scheduled meetings. We're also going to hold on November 7th, a community event at the middle school that will be open to anyone to come in before our next bond oversight committee. And the first hour will be laying out for the community the schematic design conversation, this process that we're sharing with the board tonight, so that we can give them an opportunity to provide feedback as well and ask questions, which brings me back to Alex's comment. Do you have any questions at this spot?
The November 7th community is invited.
Yes.
Okay, so what time is it? Where is it?
It'll be 5:30 to 6:30 at Molalla River Middle School.
Okay.
That be noticed as a public, not just public invited, but public meeting, so that all board members could attend.
All board members can attend because it's a social event. You're not
Okay.
making any decisions. You're not As long as
We're not
gathering a
deliberating
quorum to
because
make
we're not gonna get
decisions,
together
yeah,
and
but
do
you guys
that,
can all
right?
be there.
Okay,
Yeah.
just want to make sure that,
You know, likely will be most of what you're seeing. There might be a few, we're making progress every week, but by the 7th, it'll probably be pretty much what you're seeing tonight. But it's always good to hear what everybody says.
yes for questions. I have the one other quick question on your floor plan here. I'm just wondering, black spot that appears here and
That is a
there.
wheelchair.
Really?
Yeah, so if you
Okay.
look really closely, so every classroom has to have an ADA space, which in
Yeah.
some cases has a different height table or adjustable height table.
Or maybe a little wider.
Wider, those
Yeah.
things, yeah, so we have to
Okay.
incorporate that
Yeah.
into the plan, that's what it is, good observation.
And you're accounting for obviously possible growth.
To 7, that's part of the reason we have to take each room, put each chair in, each desk, so that we can actually, and then work with Randy to say, okay, we have so many periods, how many classrooms do we give? We have 700 students, how many classrooms how many seats do we need in each grade? So it's a big mathematical formula, it's actually quite interesting, because then you have the electives that happen. And so it's interesting. So we're at that point. We've done a lot of work. Randy's been great. We've gone through those calculations to come up with the number of classroom spaces, the number of seats.
So this gymnasium that you have over here, how does that compare in size to the existing gymnasium at the middle school?
Oh, it's way bigger because
Is it bigger?
this combines essentially the area. You have essentially 3 gyms
Right.
there. So there's more like 3 courts, but they're all in one big space.
I'm sure it probably distorts it a little bit to see it up here on the screen,
Yeah.
but when I look at the bleachers in relation to the edge of the court, I kind of feel like it seems close. Like
Yeah, and
really
this is
close.
pretty schematic, and there are different versions, like if you have a team sport. So what we've done is accommodated the center rows of bleachers don't pull out all the way, so you can have your scoring tables. So when we set this up, it's one of the reasons we do these sheets, is we want to make sure we get the bleacher count set, so that even when you pull back some of those center ones for the scoring tables, if it's a basketball game, you still get your capacity that we're looking for. And right now we feel, mainly because this just shows a competition court, but then if you take that and retract the bleachers, then you have 3 courts going the other direction. And so we're really happy. This, in fact, you'll see later that some of the group took a tour of other schools, and they visited a very similar gym to this, I think, in Oregon City, and everybody was really impressed with how big and flexible. One of the big advantages of combining all 3 courts into one space is during PE. We do have a divider curtain, but sometimes you have a PE teacher and you have to supervise. Right now, you have 3 separate gyms, so you can't have a PE teacher going from court to court and be visible. So the one big space is great. And then if you have a really big community event, you have a really big space to do an event on the floor.
Thank you. Talk about this. Design has been community access to the gymnasium as one example of community access in the buildings. It's really important in any schematic layout. So the location of this gymnasium will have access from an outside door for public use outside of school hours on a weekend for a tournament, for example. And the remainder of the building would be secure and separate from this, which would be accessible by the public. Is one example. We've also talked about other potential public access, but this is a starting point where it's a must. It's a have to.
So what does this process look like? It's right here in this room at the top. It's been very hands-on with this group, again, very intensive work. Even moving pieces around on a board to say, what if the classrooms were here? Where should the gym be in relation to, as Tony said, to get public access after hours? And so again, every week we've been doing this work, and you're going to see a lot of the results of that here today. Part of that is just trying to look beyond what you have, which is, old. And so part of that is we've been bringing examples of other schools around the area to see what are the possibilities in these different schools, what kinds of spaces are there, how are spaces changing over, since the original middle school, things are a lot different, libraries are different, Cafeterias are now commons where there's more things going on than just eating food. And so that's been part of this process to really understand what is a contemporary middle school look like. And then Tony, why don't you talk a little bit about the tours that have happened?
Yeah. So as Alex said, we've had the opportunity to visit and walk through schools and get a sense of nuts and bolts things. For example, what does the flow of traffic look like as kids are headed to lunch? Where are kids going to line up and how many queuing lines are going to feed out to a point of sale? What does that look like? How does it fit within the cafeteria? We're really thinking operationally about how does this school operate for young adolescents? And you heard me talk earlier about grade specific neighborhoods. That is an absolute, central tenet of middle school design. That sixth graders have a space where they're not passing in a hallway with 700 kids, but they're in a small community with 90, maybe 120, depending on the period of the day. So you'll see some examples of that. So we walked through and we saw how these neighborhoods are organized in different layouts, how traffic flows. We also looked, as Alex said a moment ago, at gymnasiums. Craig, your question about bleachers is one that we noticed as well. A couple brand new schools actually, when they had their bleachers all the way out, they couldn't play basketball on that court. It went too far out into the court. And so as we've been talking about this, is we have to make sure that yes, we have enough seating for our students and that competition court is available to play on while those bleachers are out for not only basketball, volleyball, but school assemblies. That was the other piece during the pre-bond process is our current middle school doesn't have enough space for all school assembly, right? This will provide that kind of space. We looked at traffic flow from buses coming in and out. That was a question that was asked at a recent meeting of this board was, what's that going to look like? And so we're getting traffic off of Leroy into a roundabout that gets the kids dropped off. We're not stopping traffic on Leroy. Those buses are going in. And Leroy will be that major entrance point. What other thoughts did we have? Just the technology we saw in schools. Technology will be a piece of building a new school. How do we use technology to really secure the few entrances that we have? Right now, we're talking about a school with 47 possible entrances.
We're trying to get to 4.
And moving it to 4. There are going to be 4 entrance points. We saw secure vestibules in each of these schools and got a sense of what it looks like to welcome people into a school that is welcoming and inviting. It doesn't feel like a prison, right? But you don't get to walk through the doors unless you're checked in by an adult. And, we saw some examples that were more grandiose than others on the entrance and others that were scaled back. Just kind of, again, looking at the different flavors. And I think we have helped our folks, our friends at OPSIS and at OTAC kind of hear the voice of the pre-bond process that we heard in our listening sessions. We have all the data from those pre-bond listening sessions. One other piece I want to say in terms of inspiration is we have a scheduled field trip because of our existing partnership with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde to visit Grand Ronde here in 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. And our educational contact and the tribal historian who work with us on the mascot redesign are going to be there to greet us, talk with us about possible inspiration elements. We've talked about the inclusion of natural products, for example. We saw a lot of that in our current schools we looked at. Lots of wood, right? That flavor, I think, speaks to me, and I think it speaks to our community as well. I'm all over the place, but going and seeing it was really helpful. I know a number of board members have been in some of these same schools. One of the things that we saw, for example, was the all-user restroom access with corridors that allow for single-user toilet spaces, right? Single-user toilet, just like it would be in your own home, with a space where kids would come out of those single-user spaces, wash hands, and head out to the school. But they're all-user spaces that have line of sight. No dead ends in those spaces, and no communal spaces like might have been in the schools that we went to, right? Yes, Linda.
There's ventilation in the bathrooms.
Oh, yeah.
That would be nice.
Look to these guys on that.
'Cause they're-
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's great to, and one of the great things about the tours is you actually hear it from the users. It's not just the designers that you hear, hey, we've been in it for 2 years and here's what works and here's what doesn't. And you learn something, and I think, you know, and you learn also what you think works for your community. And that was a great thing of them hearing, hey, you know, this works here, but yeah, I don't know if that's gonna work so well for our program. So that's been a real help, and it's helped solidify things. So kind of coming out of that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tony, just something you said just
Mhm.
made me think of something, and if it's not practical, or if it's just something you don't want to think about or whatever, that's fine. But I was just thinking, if you have these or not non-communal individual restrooms, let's say they're maybe adjoining a hallway where everybody mixes. Are we also talking about having the hand washing facilities in that hallway
They're actually,
or not?
the examples that we saw have the restroom spaces available, the toilet spaces available. And kids come out, there's a communal hand washing area. And then once I'm finished washing my hands, then I step out into the hallway.
So there would be nothing going on at one of these communal hand washing spaces other than washing hands, right?
That's it.
Right.
So is there a problem with, don't anybody tell the ACLU, I'm about to say this, but is there a problem with putting a camera or cameras facing down that hallway? So that, because my understanding in past years of hearing about things is where the problems tend to occur in those restrooms. And if people are just going into the stalls by themselves, right? We don't really need to see them, but it would be nice to see if somebody's getting dragged into a stall or pushed into a stall. And at that point, they're in a communal area anyway, right? There's no expectation of privacy. It would give us a chance to kind of monitor, what's going on in that hallway.
And I appreciate the question, because I think that's the question with my dad hat on, right? How are we making sure kids are safe in this physical environment? One of the schools, I believe it was Lake Ridge Middle School, where there was a board member event recently. You could see down that space. It was open on both ends. There was no dead end, and camera placement in a hallway. Again, I'll look to my team. We're gonna have line of sight.
Have a person there watching them all the
No.
time, somebody
Exactly
wouldn't get
what
away
we've
with
done
things.
in
What's that?
Portland Public Schools, which is done now, 4 of these high schools. There's a camera at each in and out. So yes, you are looking at the hand
So in
washing.
a communal restroom, there's an expectation that you could be doing anything in there. You could be naked, right? So you want it to be private, but this isn't a communal
And
restroom.
it's-
That's right.
It's essentially, think of it as like Starbucks, but with the sink out in the hallway.
Yeah.
So basically you have a private space for the restroom, for the toilet, and then everything else is in the open.
So I would just like to put that out there as a
Yeah.
suggestion, as,
Yeah.
something to explore.
The line of sight and the camera.
The cameras.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Have you ever been to the restrooms at Pioneer Square?
I have.
Okay,
yeah.
it's much like that, where you have your
Except
sinks in the
Pioneer
middle.
Square, when I went into the restroom, it was all co-ed or whatever.
Yes.
But nobody from outside
Could
that
see it.
restroom could see in.
Exactly. and
Even though they
that's
had a security guard there, which kind of like
The
just
school
freaked me
that,
out a little bit, because I thought that was weird.
the school that we went to had that system, and it was like, and I think the first one we went to had a school, their restroom was like that too. Made me a little uneasy, because like, you don't really have that privacy necessary. Turn around and check out your backside and go, oh, no, would you, like, it's like, how do you fix that problem? Because it's not really discreet, but the cameras are on that point at the sink,
Right,
not the kids walking into a stall.
right,
So,
exactly.
but I was like, all right, I kind of get it.
They have found in the schools now that have been operating with this, I think the first one's about 6 years ago, that the number of incidents in the restrooms has just gone almost to zero. Because it was the number one, it's in most schools, the number one place of incidents are because it's a private space and nobody's monitoring it. As soon as you have people walking in the hallway, as well as the camera.
Cameras looking at them even when there's not someone.
Yeah.
You have a washing place inside the bathroom itself? Or is
No,
it just a communal
just-
thing in the hallway?
Just in the hallway. no.
Oh, goodness, that could present a problem.
I don't know if they wanna wash.
If they wanna wash, they're gonna wash.
Yeah.
Whether it's in there or out.
What if they have a major accident and they want to wash in that bathroom to clean up after themselves?
One thing we've done is also had some individual, what we call individual restrooms. A few of them called single user restrooms that have a sink and a toilet. So there could be some of those interspersed, not everyone. Give you an idea, this building will have about 50 toilet restroom facilities. So if you put a sink in every one of those, obviously it's gonna be very, very expensive. So,
Yeah.
but it could be we have 5 or 6 that are those individual restrooms that do have a sink in them. Sink and toilet.
And we saw those near the nurses station
Yes, yeah.
and near the counselors' offices and the main office.
And sometimes we put one of those with each bank. of the other.
Nurses Station, are we in the school? That would just open us up to the school-based health center. And
Well,
that
we've got to
opens up a whole
respond
lot
to
of other
emergencies
problems.
and our nurses, because we have 3 FTE currently, they're responding to emergencies with kids, get 700 kids in school and kids are getting hurt and injured. So it's really about emergency response. That's what school nursing services look like for us.
There's a pot to lay down.
It doesn't open up another can of worms.
No, and we've had the school nursing services for as far back in time as I know. Certainly the entire 13 years that I've been here. Kids breaking arms on the playground,
Yeah.
kids getting a bloody nose, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so coming out of that effort, all those listening efforts.
Can I
we-
just?
Oh, yeah.
We currently have a nurse's space, a dedicated nurse's space at our middle school. So it's not different. It's not a different practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that we don't have any other.
We're not
anything else
providing
going on
healthcare
Like I've been
services.
reading about. Okay,
Yeah.
you know what my concerns are.
I do.
Okay. got it.
So coming out of that, we've developed a number of key strategies, and we've created this graphic, and we'll just go through these individually a bit very quickly, but they really represent some of the planning strategies. So we have all these needs, we have the desires, and then some of these things you'll see that have come up about safety and security, about how the site is used, all those things. We've tried to document those as an overall set of strategies as we develop, so we don't lose track of some of these major things that we want to achieve. And so I'm going to kind of go through these, and I'll go through each slide. There's like 5 slides here, so 2 or 3 on each one. So these are really about the site, and one of the key things we've talked about is really having the main entry to the school visible off of Leroy. And that becomes the main point that you can easily see where the entry to the school is. And pretty simple, but that's been one of the criteria. And that also helps us with, as we mentioned, things to do with traffic and so on. The other big thing, and this is a big thing when we talk about bringing the buses onto the property, as well as the drop off and pickup and staff parking, that we really want to separate traffic for safety. We don't want people trying to back out of a parking space or dropping off a kid while the buses are coming. So these are common great practices for school design, is to separate traffic out. And then after hours use, a big thing about how can we take part of the building and make sure that it's accessible, whether it's the gym or maybe it's a theater space or something else. We're working through that now. What spaces do we want to have that can be sectioned off? And one of the big issues is you don't want to have janitor free reign through the whole building when you have an event in the gym that kids are everywhere. So we'd be able to lock off portions of the school and limit the ability for the public after hours to move to different areas. Before I jump into the next one, those are pretty straightforward, but any questions? Yeah.
I do have a question. That's right. Where was this drop off? Is this area actually in the parking lot, or is that on Leroy Street?
Everything is on the property, so not in the street.
Okay.
So the idea is to take any activities, buses, whatever.
So theoretically, somehow, someone who's a parent driving their kid to school, they're going to turn off of Leroy
drop their
into a
kids.
parking area where they can drop their
Yeah.
student. They don't have to drop their student by stopping on Leroy.
Exactly, and we don't want the buses stopping on Leroy to
Right.
pick up students either, yeah,
Right.
so
Be
that's.
a drive-through, you're saying? Here's the front of the school and then you'll have a drive-through away
drop
from
the
the
kids off.
Leroy?
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll get there.
all right.
These are all also aspirations. There could be some slight compromises on how things work out, but these are the goals.
Okay,
We want to keep people off of
That's a good goal.
Leroy,
that's a
and we
real
want
good
to
goal.
separate the buses from the staff parking, from the drop off and pickup.
Perfect.
Make it as, somebody once told me that in school design, the biggest complaint parents have has something to do with dropping off or picking up. It's almost as much as what's happening in the classroom. It's like I get really frustrated if I'm in a long line and I can't get somebody dropped off or picked up. So we want to make that as smooth as
Have you ever seen
possible.
what it looks like at Beaver Creek Elementary School in the morning when they're dropping students
I
off?
have not seen
It
that.
is a disaster.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The cars literally line up for like half a mile down Beaver
Yeah.
Creek Road as people are trying to make this turn onto the, what is it, whatever it is, whatever it is road. Oh,
What about like visitor parking and handicap parking? That's
Yeah,
not
and that's
gonna
all
be,
will be, and whether the visitor parking is tied up with the drop off area or inside some of the bus loop area, there's different versions of that that we'll be looking at. And how much parking, so that would be another issue. There are currently so many striped spaces on the site, and then there's a number of unstriped, meaning places people park when there's a big event. The daily use of parking is not that high. The weekend or Molalla sports event weekend thing fills up every piece of pavement. So there's never too much parking for weekend events. There's plenty of parking now for the daily use. So balancing field space with parking space with everything else is part of that balance that we're going to get into.
The one picture that you have, the after-school access, okay, so are you shutting off half of the school? And then you just have
Yeah.
access to the kids?
What we're saying is, and this is really diagrammatic, it's saying that, yes, we think that it's a great idea. And the district, everybody on the project team, it would be really great if we could cut off part of the school for after school use and not have everything open. We don't know what part that is yet.
Okay,
Probably the gym, could be the gym in the lobby, it could be multiple levels. So we've done schools where there's the smallest area, just the gym and restrooms, and then the next level is the performing arts, cafeteria, main lobby space and thing, and then the next level is the classroom. So you can basically modulate the school based on the use after hours.
and the entrances.
And the entrances, right, so you might have different entrances, and most likely we will have a separate gym entrance. It goes into a hallway that goes into the gym, so that we don't have to go into the main entry for after school gym use. That's pretty standard in most projects now.
Ties into the emergency service stuff that we talked about in the beginning. Should we have natural disaster and had to house people, we can section off our school and keep it secure, keep everybody else secure.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense.
That's why you really need to make sure the restrooms are in a secure area with the gym, because I've seen so many, it's like, oh, we got the whole gym and we can get into it, but then, oh, we gotta go to the bathroom, then we open up the doors to the hall and the whole security thing goes crazy. So we need at some point to determine, and this is a minor thing, but just again, security, how much do we fence around the school? How do we provide secure, good visibility? Right now, you have all sorts of ins and outs and people driving through the middle of the school. So we're going to look at the whole site and understand what kind of security, and we're going to be meeting and have a security workshop with a consultant that specializes in school security, as well as our security technology folks, to look at the overall security and edges of site and how do we provide security across the project itself. One of the things we're looking at heavily in these concepts are some enclosed courtyards. That allows for certain activities to happen without letting kids off in somewhere. we are looking at a concept, which you'll see a little bit later, of where we have CTE and then a closed courtyard where they can go out and build something. For right now, for instance, there's a game room being built. The construction project students are building out in the area where the two covered play areas are, but it's open to the public. I mean, you can walk out there right now. Having a secure space for CTE to go out and build something and leave it there is a real benefit. So secure courtyards can be a real benefit to the school, and they bring natural light into the center of school and so on. The last one here is developmentally safe learning, and this is that idea of neighborhoods. How can we take the scale of 700 and bring it down to 90 to 100 or so students in each neighborhood? And that would mean essentially 2 neighborhoods per grade. It's been proven that you can kind of know about 90 people, and then after that, it's just a mass of people. So 90 is that kind of number. It allows us to have in that neighborhood a classroom for math, a classroom for language arts, a classroom for social studies, and a science classroom. So having those core curriculum pieces in your neighborhood, you can stay in your neighborhood through the part of the day until you go to an elective, which might be music or drama or construction or the FACS program or band or whatever. So in your neighborhood, you can have your core academic programs that come together. So that's kind of a fundamental planning process that we've been looking at as part of this process. Questions?
I thought your job was easy.
Nah, okay, you know, it's great to be out. It's great to be in Molalla and you go out on that site and it's just, you know, have that this space. There's something about space and it's fields, it's the plain, you know, caused by the river and everything coming. So we want to make sure that you're not like when you're in this building, you're not just anywhere in the world, you're actually connected to the community. You're seen out to the fields. You look to the west from that right now from where the parking is, and this great expanse all the way over to the elementary school. And so one of the planning principles, how can we keep those, when you walk into this building, can you just look straight on through and view out to the landscape in some ways to know you are right here. It's something special. So bringing daylight in, those views to nature, those are all things that we're thinking about in this design process. And of course, good access to things like how do you get out to the fields and how do you have good visibility for supervision? It's one of the things we've been talking a lot about is with this lunchtime, kids are outside. We don't want them to stray too far away. So how can we have good observation and supervision? How do we place things internally into the building? We got to some of this discussion already. One of the ideas, and this has come from really from Randy a lot, is let's bring those 6th graders close to the front door. So the one is they're close to people like Randy. They're close to the people that can give them guidance, and they come in the door. They're right there. I think it's a great planning strategy that brings them, you know, in a place where they can start to feel comfortable and get to know the school. The next one is, you know, we have this idea of some type of a theater space in the building, and how can we bring that close to the main entry so it has an ability to be used as a community space. It seats up to around 200 or so. It can be a space for community use, and having it close to the main entry, having it visible from Leroy Ave Street to be able to see something there and say, oh yeah, let's go to something at that theater space. That's one of the principles we've been working with. And then lastly, I mentioned this idea of a CTE center in courtyard. How can you bring those CTE programs together? Because a lot of them have interactions. Like you can have a construction space, they can be building sets or something on stage. You can have digital media that's also doing for something that's working with the band and those other electives. So they may be recording in a booth, what are they? Yeah, studios, a little small, yeah, the podcast, that podcast booth, you know, so those kind of things that are happening in technology that students are all into. How can we take those different disciplines and bring them close enough together that the teachers and the students can see ways that they can interconnect? Questions on this one? We only have to get one more.
So just a question, you mentioned 200-seat theater. I maybe you shouldn't mention details around me because I wondered, is a 200-seat theater, is that big enough? Is it too small? Is it too big? Is it,
So
I mean,
that's
how do you decide on 200 seats for a given facility?
That's a really great question. For middle school, it's the drama type things that are happening are more small productions, right? Just because of the number of students and the amount of time they have to work on it. So it's basically friends and family of people that are in the production or in that drama class. So that often is even closer to 100 or 100. So 100 or 100 or something, you know, if you had 30 kids in a class and each one brought their parents and some grandparents and whatnot. So typically we would see that type of theater in like a middle school. For big events like a assembly, that's where the gym would come into play. And if the theater gets too big, then students aren't going to want it. It's just too intimidating, frankly, to present it. 200 is also in that area. It's a good size for community events. If you wanted to give a, yeah, if you give a
So we have
lecture.
the Molalla High School auditorium, kind of a nice size, you know, frankly, I wish it was a little bigger, but yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have an alternative in the community for special events like that? So.
And we're just starting to talk about that and exactly how big it is, how flexible it is. But it is a great opportunity in this project to provide some community resource. We did talk about this idea about, you know, just talking about core academics, athletics, and the electives, meaning the band and CTE, how those are arranged about the central commons. And that gives students a place they're always coming together and crossing. We talked a little bit about the neighborhoods. And this last one I think is important, is the integration of the life skills and specialized and special education learning communities, not having them off, you know, wings somewhere separately, but really bringing them in to the heart of the academic program. So that's been one of the concepts we've been working on.
And that's worked well at other schools?
Yes, really well. I think it helps those students, you know, have visibility, and the students that are not in those programs also be able to see and understand those students and what they're doing. So that's been kind of where the mainstream is going with those specialized learning centers. And these include everything from special education or life skills type of classrooms to things that are more tutoring centers and other kinds of, not just your regular classroom, but they include all of those language programs as well as some behavioral programs as well as others. And giving a lot of flexibility, because those spaces are going to change over time depending on the needs of the district will change over time. One last slide. One of the biggest things we want is a clear flow. We do not want it to be a maze. That's one of the things that's, you know, how easy is it to move? One of the things we were just talking about yesterday was how long is it going to take to get from this room over here to band and back? And when you realize that these students have like a limited number of minutes between class, we want that flow to be smooth and easy and intuitive without having to kind of go all the way around it. So getting those flows to move. And one of the things we talk a lot about in a good school design today is what we call loop circulation. So pretty much what it says, you can go this way or you can go that way, but you don't. A lot of old schools, you all went to school that had wings. Like you go down that one, and then you got to go back down there, and then you go over here, and then you go down that way. But if you had a class here and you had a class there, it was like, you know, so loop circulation, it's better from that time management. It's also better from a security viewpoint. Dead end halls, you end up with emergency exit at the end of each hallway, kind of like you have now. So all of a sudden you have all of these doors to the exterior that get propped open. Students tend to do that, and all of a sudden your security is broken. So having the loop allows us to limit the number of doors to the outside. Wow, that was your deep dive learning into the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. Then we got to figure out how to put all of that together. And so that's been the fun part, probably in the last, I think, 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we've been working through a whole bunch of different ways of taking these neighborhoods and these things like the library and the commons, the courtyards, and how do they all get together? And I can go in detail, but I can tell you we've come up with a number of different versions. We've spent time looking at different circulation paths. Some that had more wings, some that had more loops, some that had all sorts of different configurations. And what we've ended up really doing is then trying to look at those in terms of the site itself. How big is the school? And you'll see that you can see the existing school at the bottom of the page there and the new school. And they're kind of take up a similar amount of square footage. But part of that too, you've got a lot of play areas and parking and everything in the middle of the building. So it's a little bit more compact, but it does obviously take most of the field directly north of the school itself. And then we have all these other issues with parking, field use, everything else that's coming into play. So we have to work all the way from that desk in the science lab on one side to bus loops and everything. So it's from biggest scale to smallest scale simultaneously to find that. Yeah.
Has it been discussed about shrinking the footprint by building up?
So we are definitely doing 2 floors for the academic areas. Otherwise the school would just get too large on the site. And here's the deal. That once we bring all the buses onto the site, that takes up a fair amount of space. We don't want to lose much field space. So the compromise is, well, when we bring the buses in, how do we not lose field space? We have to take some of the classrooms and move them to the second floor. It's also more efficient construction for us to have, particularly the classrooms in a 2-floor area. Other spaces, CTE, we don't abandon music. Those are taller spaces. We don't want any classrooms above those. Obviously the gym. So basically the classrooms we stack, all the other spaces we can put on. So what I'm going to have you do right now is stand up. We're going to bring up that model that you see in the picture. It's going to put it on this table. And you're all going to be able to stand up and look at it, put your hands in, have some fun. Yeah, you make kind of a. Get this the right way. Okay.
It's backwards, but that's okay.
It's backwards. Depends on which way is north. So
I'm
let's
dyslexic. So it's good.
let's
Yeah.
orient everyone.
Daniel, could you enlarge the camera view on the table, please?
You see it?
Steve would
Did
love-
Bob see it?
Yeah, you want to stop sharing their screen?
Yes.
Please,
Here.
thank you.
I think you can see this.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you want me to just put on the. profile with him?
Yeah, that would work too.
Or do we need to stand and be out of his way to see this?
Well,
The camera's there.
that's
so-
there it is.
The camera's
Oh,
right
is
Right,
it?
but it's
Okay.
somewhat
Oh,
like-
there's the
Okay.
camera.
But we can also take the phone and bring it closer. if
That's
somebody-
what I was saying.
Go ahead and share. If you go on to the Zoom, you can hit share
Oh,
Okay.
or somebody you could.
yeah, let me do it, because
Let's flip this around because the
So it's gonna be a double decker.
Okay, so, okay, I'm on Leroy here. Main Street's 2 blocks that way.
Okay.
This is coming up here. We got Lynn Lane. The existing school is sitting right here, okay? So what we need to do in this process is we need to somewhere bring buses in, loop them out, come out. Again, this is we think it's probably gonna be here in the middle of the site, but we don't know for sure. at this point, but we're looking at buses coming in, looping in and coming out. We're looking at some kind of staff parking. And we're looking at that drop off where you would come in, drop off, visitor parking, and go back out. We're trying to separate out the distance between where buses are coming in and out of the site, out of Leroy, and where cars are coming. So they might be lining up this way to go in, or they're lining up here, coming that way and coming into the site. And then we're trying to preserve as much field space as possible around the school. And what you find out really quickly is when you put all those things together, all of a sudden it seems like a giant site and it gets small. We also have a very clear line, which is right about here, which is the existing building. We can't build, obviously we're leaving that building operational while we're building this. So basically everything south of that has to stay as it is until we get this built over that summer. And then we can tear that building down and build the bus loop and build those fields. So this is,
Are
yeah.
these right here, are these walkways, like sidewalks?
No, not really.
Not
Not
even-
yet.
okay.
We're a little too early. You can see this doesn't actually fit on here because the bus loop has to move. This is a in-process work, but it gives you an idea that one of the things we've been thinking a lot about this idea is that if you were coming from Leroy here, this would be the entry. And one of those things we talked about is, can you look straight out to the west toward the track and toward the elementary school and across the fields? And that's where this commons would be in the center. And you can see this idea of loop here. It's really a double loop. It's almost like a figure eight. Anywhere you go here, you can loop around without hitting a dead end. In this program, we have the theater and music up front, administration at the front door. That's a kind of a standard practice, a vestibule, secure vestibule. And then we have these neighborhoods. We have neighborhood 1, neighborhood 2, neighborhood 3. We have those life skills here in the center. And then we have, in this scheme, we have 2 courtyards, kind of a bunch courtyard and then a CTE courtyard. So this might be where kids are building things. They might be doing robotics out in the courtyard. They could do any kind of, they could have the 3D art that we would have. We've done a school where we have the ceramics and the glass garage door. You go out there and do some sculpture or whatever it is you're doing in art out in that courtyard. This would be more like a lunch courtyard. There'd be some tables out there, again, secure, not students out there. And then this would be active playground kind of space outside the building. In this version, you can see that if we did have a drop off, let's assume this put it a little bit differently on the site, but you might have a separate entry here for the gym. So we could take and basically close the building off here and here, and you'd have the restrooms, the locker rooms, the gym, and an entry. That would be the smallest and secure zone. So you could come in and we'd probably put some parking in here. After hours, you could park. If a team was coming for some kind of event, they could bring a bus in here. You could actually get in and use this gym without getting in the rest of the school. The next secure level, when you talk about where that might be, is you might then have some doors here and here. So you can say, well, we're going to do an event in the theater. We're going to leave the main lobby open. We're going to let the gym. Then we could secure this area off from the classroom. So these layers of security are really important to think about so that we don't have to open the whole building up. Then you can see looking at a second floor here, so I get this right. Again, those neighborhoods stack on top of each other. And you can start to see how this common space, again, one of the things we talk a lot about is where could Randy stand in the morning? Like right here, you're coming in the door, he could be there. And a lot of our principals we work with over and over again say that's one of the best things of the design we work on. Where can I stand and see the whole school? Where can I feel like I can see everybody coming and going? And where is that happening? It could happen inside the door. You can view the neighborhoods, you can view the CTE out toward the play area and have a sense of everything, which is completely opposite of what he has right now, which is I have no idea what's going on beyond down on those wings. You know, those wings are out there somewhere else. You got to be moving through the building. And so this is where we're kind of at right now. It's a concept. It's still very conceptual, but I think everybody's pretty excited about the way is working. We're starting to sit on the site and kind of some of the concepts about how the pieces come together. So with that, I'm gonna stop talking and let you guys ask questions, poke your head. If you want to, you can also get down. I do have some roofs to put on it, but they're really just preliminary. We don't really know what the building looks like or what the roofs are.
No question
Yeah.
about, just notice that you've got, each grade is on both floors.
Actually, we labeled them that way, and I've been meaning to actually take that off because it could be that this is sixth grade and sixth grade, and then seventh and seventh and eighth and eighth.
I don't advocate for one or the
No,
other. I'm
it's
just
interesting.
curious that you-
It's an
you said
interesting
that if there was a
question. Do
reason
they
for
stack?
it,
Do
that-
they stack
Okay.
vertically so they're really close? This idea is that sixth grade is here on 2 floors, and then this is seventh and eighth. So kind of this side is sixth grade on 2 floors, and there's a stairway right here. One of the things the loop circulation does for us is a little intricacy of school planning. You'd like to think that every grade is the same number of students, but it isn't. The population goes up and down depending on your grade level and your enrollment. So some grades are gonna have potentially at some point you could hit an enrollment growth where all of a sudden you need to go one more classroom. When you have wings, that's a little bit of a problem because all of a sudden, oh, wait, the sixth grade wing, and that's right now, don't we have a classroom? A sixth grade classroom in the seventh grade wing, which is like outside and around. So that's one of the advantages of the loop is just go one more classroom over, and one of those classrooms could become a sixth grade classroom. And then as that bump of school population moves through, that could move back to a seventh grade or to an eighth grade classroom.
So the entrances, there would be one gym.
One here in the main entry, and then this would be more of an exit, which would be out to the playground. And there might then be a staff entry off a staff parking lot that would be just a secure sort of backdoor cart swipe kind of entry for staff. But really trying to get it hopefully to 2, if not 3 main entries. So limited number of secure points.
So I have a question about the parking,
Yes.
if you can imagine. So your biggest parking lot is over here. And I understand that staff parking, but what goes on in the evening when you've got, let's say, events here and here?
So
Are
like I
they
said,
park?
there's probably gonna be more parking. It's not shown yet. So imagine at least this lot probably here. Like one version would be you actually run the bus loop around a parking lot, which is
Right.
one version is often done. But we haven't really gotten that far.
Okay.
This is the minimum parking that would be required. All other parking would be how much more
Yeah.
parking do we want to put for community use?
Whatever you don't put somewhere here is gonna mean people lining up
Exactly.
down Leroy Street.
Exactly.
And they're probably gonna be doing that anyway, because you'll probably never have enough
Never enough
parking on the site.
Yeah.
So it'll be probably
I think
parking
this is
in other
about-
neighborhoods.
This is about 100 spaces, and we were thinking if we put another, say, 50 or 60 here, we'd be 150, which is more or less the number of striped spaces now. Now, there are a number of places right now, well, you see right here, where the road is kind of vague on the south end, there's no striping. So there's a lot of spaces to park now that aren't actually striped parking spaces. If you count all of those, you might be able to get up to 200 cars on the site now. But with the bus loop.
So with fields down here,
Yeah.
so the school's all torn down, this
Yeah.
is done, you got fields down here, would there be parking down there as well?
Well, that's the question. Do we put it here? We probably want to concentrate it.
Yeah, close to the school.
Yeah, close to the
Because people don't
school.
want to walk that far.
Yeah, that's the
across the entire
disadvantage. Of- Yeah. So what we probably do is bring the fields as close to that edge as possible and bring the parking probably here. Or we might build this down a little bit and have more parking there. That's where we have.
I feel like, yeah, the more the better.
Yeah.
That's something that the
The
city
more-
people don't take into
Yeah.
account. That's why every, can't drive through their own neighborhoods because the cars are all
Yeah.
parked on the
And it's
street.
then it's the balance, like how much field space do you start to take versus parking space?
Yeah.
That's the park space.
I like the idea of you putting some parking near those fields because
Well, yeah, and near the gym and the theater as well.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to walk all the way around.
We haven't been obviously like you have, but what we have seen is the majority use of the fields is like the weekend,
Right.
there's the Little League or the sports clubs. That's when, that's where the fields are really getting used. So if you're gonna sit there in your car, like I understand that people, like this is the back there now, people park right where you can park and look out at the field. They probably, some stay in their cars while they're looking at somebody playing out in the field, but yeah, that ability to have some visibility between your car and the fields is a good thing.
I like what you said, Alex, that this is still conceptual because it looks pretty darn.
Yeah, I know.
And also, I like your word aspirational. We're still
Yeah.
in aspirational stage.
Yeah.
You don't fall in love with, oh, now I understand what the sign is. We're not done.
Yeah, it's literally, well, this version is a version that came out of our work session on Tuesday. It was remodeled yesterday. Model was made yesterday for today. So that's the speed at which we're moving along, just to make sure we're getting to the point that we have a concept that we can start to put dollars to share with all the community. This is kind of a vision. It's not a design yet.
Clarify, at this point, it's still just within that boundary of the right of way on Hezzy Lane that theoretically could go
Yes,
all the
well,
way
we
through.
could, yeah, we could build over that because it's actually a right of way. So,
Right.
yes, so we're
We're right up to within an inch of it.
right.
Where is Hezzy Lane on this thing?
It's right over there. And it
Right- oh, right
stops,
there.
it stops right about this point.
Okay, all right.
And then you can see here where Lynn Lane ends right here.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the stereo is a little distorted, but Lynn Lane, it's not nearly as quite as wide as it is. The right of way is wider than the actual road.
So where's
itself.
the elementary school?
Right about where the chair is.
Oh, okay, all right. All right. We're getting close.
Yeah.
Maybe
At an angle,
Just
yes.
right
Yeah.
Where did you say your point of entry and exits are?
So this would be
Right there.
right there.
Yeah.
It's essentially, so here's your existing front doors right here. Right
Yeah.
now. This is the grove of trees right there, and that's your front door. So this would be the front door here. Essentially, if you were in the parking lot now, and you're halfway down where that parking lot kind of does strange two things coming together, that's about it.
So you got 3 points of entry and exit, or you're gonna have 4? 'Cause
One, the main entry, one after hours gym entry. This would be not an entry. This is
Right.
access to the playground, essentially recess,
and then
and then a potential staff only entry, potentially on the north side.
that's really we're gonna have that extra exit, fire or anything else.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll have,
That's a lot of kids to try and get through
Yeah.
1 or 2
Yeah.
areas.
there may be some other exit doors that are not overcome. But we do want to try and limit those so that we don't get the problem. Every door we put in school, will get propped up. Even though we put an alarm on it, they'll get propped up with so many, but yeah.
Those are
fairly strict on those as
Yeah,
well.
well, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So
it's-
it
We're
would be-
talking about that a lot.
It does have to be held to
That's
those
good.
the
standards.
gym, for instance, will likely have exits direct because it's got, that, the gym has to be designed as if you packed it with people. It probably is gonna be code to say that there's, I think, like 1,500 people in it. But
4 exits. probably.
4 exits, yeah, so it's gonna have some doors, which also could get propped open too, but gym just has so many people. It's gonna have some sort of exit doors on it.
And so road access, I know we're having a problem in town now with the building that's going out here on Illinois and all of that. There's not going to be anything at this time because it's out of season. And they won't do the asphalt and stuff. So are you gonna make sure that we don't put in that, we don't run into that problem too?
Like-
It's kind of huge over there.
Yeah, so the way, I don't know, Steve, why don't you talk about the schedule?
So,
It's after October or something like that.
so the contractor will develop the kind of procurement schedule and construction schedule. Typically, one of the advantages, the way that this is being done relative to building on the north side of the site, is that as soon as school is out, then we can tear the old school down. And at that point, you can spend that summer when you've got the weather to do a lot of the paving projects themselves when the asphalt batch plants are open, because like you said,
Yeah,
I think they just closed like last week.
yeah, it's turning into be a really big problem.
Yes. There are ways to get asphalt during the winter, but it's cheap. Like that.
All right, does anybody have any other questions?
Can't be the first one in the elevator.
Yeah, right. That's what that black dot is.
Yeah.
It's an elevator, you said?
Uh-huh.
So it'll be an elevator.
Tough to have it.
But that's what that-
Yeah.
And the stairs will be where?
we don't know. We are showing some stairs here, stairs there.
Okay.
There's at least 2 stairs.
Chair McNeil, our next agenda item is our partners, OTAC.
Okay.
Presenting a bit about the CNBC alternative property process. Do you want to continue with your agenda?
Thank you.
Take a break?
Does anybody need a break?
Yeah, I do actually, just a quick.
Okay, just a quick one.
Okay.
Give me 5.
Flash. Okay, thanks.
It's in the car.
Half a cup, just half a cup. Yes. Oh, I feel so silly. No, not at all. No, it was so funny. I never really had a lot of pain until the surgeon actually touched my
We're
shoulder.
gonna get started. So we have our next speaker is the OTAC team talking about the construction manager, general contractor method, I think it's called.
Tiny introduction. Bob Collins and Mickey Bragg are here from OTAC. You saw in your materials tonight that there's no decision tonight. We're not asking the board to deliberate anything this evening. We're giving you an early look a month out from where we are envisioning coming back to ask the board to consider taking action to approve or to direct to approve the district moving forward with an alternative contracting process. And these good folks are the experts to talk us through that. And our project management firm for the middle school.
All right, good evening, board members. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and kind of give you a little bit more information around what we call the construction manager, general contractor method of project delivery. So just give you a little bit of background. You know, there are a number of different project deliveries that owners and private people do. And the most common one that all of you are certainly familiar with, design, bid, build, where you have an architect designs a project, contractors provide a cost and they go build it. And that's worked for many years, but also has challenges when there are disagreements or discrepancies in design, and sometimes can get a little contentious. So back actually this process of delivery, I believe, was started back in the late 50s by the military because they were tired of cost overruns for large projects. And so, but currently in the Oregon revised statutes, it's still basically that contracts or projects have to be built, the design, bid, build. But there is an avenue to get an exemption from that process, which is what we're attempting to do for here. Most school projects these days of any large size are going CMGC, and we'll explain here in a minute why. Again, because of the Oregon revised statutes, 2 weeks from now, there'll be a board meeting where there'll be some findings of facts, which will say why there's value for the district to approve using the CMDC. It'll be around cost savings, technical expertise, the ability for the contractor to be involved in the design process, which helps avoid misunderstandings and challenges that we'd rather find beforehand before you actually get out there on the site to build it. So just looking here at some of the information you have here in front of you. The first step, I'll just kind of go through there, and you guys have a little bit of a kind of a PowerPoint here.
is that the district will issue a request for proposals to interested contractors to do the CMGC process. When they provide their proposal, it's largely based on qualifications, right? They'll say, this is the kind of work we've done, this is the people we have that will do the work, and they'll also provide their project approach and other factors that they will do, how they manage budget, how they manage schedule. So their selection is largely based on qualifications. There is a piece of money that's involved where that gets scored, but it's only usually around 10 to 20% of the overall scoring, because we want them for their ability to do the project versus having a low bid. Okay. And during that process, when they give us their proposals, they're going to give us 3 items of costs. They're going to give us what their fee percentage is. You know, that's basically what their overhead and profit is. Okay, it's a percentage of the overall construction cost. They're going to give us their pre-construction costs, which is the cost that they say it's going to take for them to help us from the schematic design phase that Alex and Steve are talking about, and work all the way through to the end of the design, so that we will get their expertise and their estimating. They will provide estimates through 2 or 3 stages of that design process, so we know that the design is actually going to meet the budget. And then the third piece that is part of the cost for their proposal is general conditions. General conditions is all of the costs that they have to manage the project on site. You know, office trailer, people on site managing the work, doing some of the pickup work, copiers, phones, trucks to run around the project. So all the costs they have to do the work, that's not profit overhead, it's just actual cost. So they will submit a proposal, and then there will be a selection committee made up of folks from the district here, and they will select that contractor. There will be interviews, more than likely, that's pretty typical. And then once a CMGC partner is selected, then they move into phase 1 of the contract, which is essentially them providing the services during the design phase. That first contract is only for that design phase. Okay, so the rest of the project is not a part of the original contract. Okay, so then that'll happen sometime early Q1 of 2025. Then we'll move right on through the design. It's going to take, you know, through spring and summer. At some point near the end of design, but not at the end of design, it's usually around 75% of the actual construction documents, the contractor has to provide a guaranteed maximum price. And that's a price that they will have to agree, they'll have to live with that amount, and the district has an opportunity to look at that GMP, guaranteed maximum price. And we do give them a target guaranteed maximum price at the beginning of the project, so that they know what the district is aiming for. And the whole idea throughout that whole design process and their involvement is to make sure we can hit that price. So if one of their estimates comes back and we're $5 million over what the target is, then the design team and the contracting team, the project team figures out how are we going to make this project meet all the criteria, including price. So that's one of the big advantages of having this CMGC, is they're there throughout the whole process to point out some of the issues in the market. You know, that maybe it's best right now to build with wood or build with steel, or this kind of window is the best kind of window to get. So they're very, very involved in the overall design process. So that's, and then once they get to a point where they give us the guaranteed maximum price, then all of the work that's actually going to be done, you know, whether it's steel or excavation or concrete, they put out bid packages to the market to get pricing for that. And then they'll get maybe 4 prices for doing steel, and then they'll receive all those prices, and then they will say, this is the best value that we see, because this contractor didn't include this part of the work, or their experience in that with one of the projects has not been all that great. So the general contractor, or CM, really, he's the construction manager at that point, will evaluate that and will provide all of their recommendations to the owner, to this team right here, to approve that work going forward. That general contractor is able to self-perform work, but only in the sense that they have to bid on the work themselves. And the way that works, actually, just so you know, is if the bid day happens to be a week from now for the rest of the contracting community, they have to give us the bid a day before. So they don't see the pricing that's coming in from any of the other contractors. Most contractors that do this work at CMGC will often like to perform concrete and carpentry, but there's no guarantee that they'll get the work because they have to bid on it, just like everybody else. Let's see, I've covered most of that right here. Let's see. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was the findings of fact, which is something that you'll be getting, that will be described in front of you as the local contract review board. Talks about some of the benefits of CMGC, and it's listed right here. There's value engineering. That's where that process is, that the architects design at 100% design development, and there's an estimate that goes out and says, we're 5% of our budget. What are we going to do to deal with that? Are we going to change some of the material? Are we going to change the design of the building a little bit? Whatever that is. So that's a big part of the value of them being part of that. Certainly their expertise in building projects. They're builders, right? We're project managers. They're architects. They're the contractors. So they can find stuff in the design and come up with maybe a better way, a better mousetrap, a better way of doing it. One of the great advantages of having the CMGC is they are truly a partner with the district. So when it comes to like public safety, they are more vested in following what the owner of the district wants to accomplish than if you have this design bid build where it's a little bit where it can be confrontational, because they're trying to, do the project and get as much money as they can. CMGC process, they get a fee for all of the work, and they don't have an opportunity to make the kind of money that you can make in a design bid build. Somebody could make a lot of money, or somebody could lose a lot of money in that kind of process as well. The CMGC is a bit more, it's less risk for them than the hard bid project or the design bid build, but they do have some risk. And that's where we have them providing that guaranteed maximum price at the 75% construction documents. Because we want them to be very involved in all of the value engineering and design topics, because they when they have that GMP, they have to meet it. Just so you know, part of the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price, there is a contractor contingency that they will have, that we allow them to have, because we know that since the project is not fully designed, there may be some things that come up. Instead of 5 gates, there's supposed to be 6. And so they have the ability to use some of that contractor contingency with our approval, the owner approval, to take care of things that, we just didn't know about when that GMP was developed. So one of the other things that's really important, the CMGC can help with, is market conditions. It changes every year, whether the inflation's really high. Right now, the market is, we're getting better pricing on projects today than we were a year ago. We don't know what it's going to be exactly a year from now. And they have a really good feel for that. So it helps the team get good cost estimates. So if we have to do some value engineering, we can do that before we put the first shovel in the ground. Because if you find out a big problem halfway through construction, it's always more expensive. And the CMGC can definitely help avoid many of those risks and problems that we might not otherwise find, during the construction phase. I think that's pretty much everything about the CMGC process. I'd like to kind of share with you. Do you have any questions at this point, or anything that doesn't quite Make sense?
Well, I'm just wondering if you're having someone else design the project and then another company build it, isn't that company that's doing the building, aren't they a general contractor also? They're just not managing the construction, somebody else is, right?
So they're the construction manager during this design phase because they're helping us to.
No, I get that
Yeah.
part. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm having a hard time really discerning the difference between what you're telling us about as like sort of a recommendation and the design bid build
So
process.
in the construction phase, they are a general contractor and they are supervising all the trades that are there, just like a general contractor would. It's just that for the most part, it's not their forces doing the actual work unless they happen to win the bid on that.
Mhm.
But they are still being the general contractor, making sure the site is properly, prepared and safe at the end of each day, holding coordination meetings, reporting to the owner about what's happening. So they are fully responsible for the project during the construction phase.
So what's the downside to this type of arrangement versus the other one that you were talking about, the design bid build?
So in theory, you could get a project built much cheaper with a low bid from someone. Very likely you have a lot of problems with that low bid. And in a design bid build currently in Oregon, if you had 3 bidders on a project that was worth $70 million and you had someone come in and bid 60, you have to accept it. You don't have a choice. And you often will buy a lot of problems with that. In the CMDC, we're qualifying them. We're going to know, we're going to feel a level of trust before we even start doing work with them because we've gone through that whole interview and proposal process.
And along with that qualification process, it's not just project approach and team and what they've done in the past, but it's more bonding capacity. How much can they insure on a project? How much are they legally capable of handling? Looking at their current project loads and making sure that they're staying within their realm of work that they can handle.
One other aspect I've had mentioned thus far, in a design bid build, if a low bid contractor is out of Seattle, they're going to use whatever forces they want. In our CMGC RFP proposal, we make it part of their response. What's their plan on using local contractors? And we will likely have an open house for smaller contractors in the area who maybe can do sheetrock, who can do excavation. And so local forces have a much better opportunity of engaging in this project than if it were a design bid build. Because more than likely, there probably isn't any contractor big enough that's in the Molalla area that could build this whole project, in that more traditional sense.
So from a legal standpoint, our business expert, do you know of any, what do we have to do to make sure as a board that we're complying with whatever approval process there is?
The findings of fact is the process that satisfies the Oregon revised statutes, because you'll be acting as the local contract review
So
board.
who drafts those? The findings of fact and
Yeah.
whatever, okay.
The attorney reviews it.
What's that?
The attorney reviews them.
Oh, okay.
Has already reviewed them.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think what's interesting with both general contractors bidding or the CFDC is on the bid job, a little adversarial. They're going to make up their money on some change orders and finding shortcuts. And on the CFDC, they're working for us. And yet they're still going to get 3 quotes or more from the different subs. At the end of the job, this guy wants to make profit. At the end of this job, he's a guaranteed maximum price. Any money he saved doesn't go to him. It goes to the district.
That's right.
So the district gets the profit afterwards for his working on our behalf. Interesting.
$75 or 80% of school projects are
Yeah.
There'll be the next few weeks, there'll be findings of facts all over the state because it is larger projects. That's part of the key once you get beyond 20. Construction. And it's the people. you're gonna see the superintendent in that interview, who's gonna be in person. Randy's gonna be talking about the noise going on, the tractors are interrupting things, and all those issues, they're working for you. So they called the superintendent and said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna have to get the trucks out of there. They can't be on Leroy when my buses are coming through. That's the big difference. Done working with you to make sure, when we talk about that flow of buses and cars, well, you know, have a lot of construction at exactly the same time school and 3 o'clock. And so trying to orchestrate that and be able to control it.
Do you have a question on if things go wrong during the construction, like we're into the building, the kids have transitioned over, we're 6-7 months into it, and now we got problems with the building. Where's the liability in that? Who's fixing it? Who's taking care of it? Is it on us as the district, or does it go back to where everything started?
Every part of the project, no matter what, will have a 1-year warranty for everything. There are many aspects of the project that has longer warranties, like doors have a 10-year warranty that goes back to the contractor. At the end of the project, when it's substantially complete, there will actually be a document that's given to the contractor saying, the architect will say, you are done with the project, and that will start the warranty period for all those warranties I'm talking about. We're talking many warranties. And then at the 11 months after that, we will have a walkthrough with the school and the contractor and the architect, and we'll find things that were maybe not operating the way they're supposed to. It just took a while for them to, you know, maybe the lock on the door was working fine for 2 months, but now it's not latching. And those will go on an 11-month warranty walk, and that will be on the contractor to repair that, but at no cost to the district.
Now, say if at 6 months an HVAC unit breaks down or whatever, then we repair it at that time.
Yeah.
Or it's remedied at that time. We don't wait for 11 months. It's what happens that first year is realized and looked at that time. The 11 month is just kind of a reconciliation of the little things like a lock that might not be working or something like that. Or the ice maker in the refrigerator or freezer went out or something like that, and nobody's just really caught it or said something. So those items are recorded and taken care of.
Actually,
Go ahead.
so 2 questions. One is about the architect. Who hires the architect? Is that the district or is this the general contractor?
No,
It's already hired. Okay.
Yes, they're already
Great.
hired.
So next question is around selecting the CMGC. The district does that through a bidding process?
So
Correct.
There'll be a request for proposal that goes out that's very similar to what was to choose an architect and to choose our services. And that will go out and be publicly bid throughout the whole metro area. And any firm that is interested in that kind of project will provide a proposal to the district at a set time, right? And then there'll be a scoring committee of folks, I'm sure some will be in this room, that will, you know, provide maybe the top 3 type of thing, and then we'll likely go to interview.
So selecting among the proposals, that's going to be who? Is that going to be business manager, superintendent?
So I want to clarify the
police guy?
question, but to restate what I think I heard Bob say is that the public procurement process that we've gone through, both to select OPSIS as our architect and OTAC as the owner's rep, was done in consultation with our legal counsel for this public procurement process. We'll continue down that same conservative approach. We'll post the request for proposals and we'll follow exactly the same kind of structure as we used in the selection of their services.
You're gonna have to remind me what that is though, because
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Perfect.
who's
So we
involved in that.
Part of this
Yeah,
too?
we had board members involved.
Okay.
We had a date when they were due. Ron facilitated the process with board members and administrators who
Does
were all.
anybody remember who the board member was? Was that
We
you?
were.
Okay, so what I've been trying to get toward and listening to all this is I wanted to see if Neil was interested in and could be part of that committee. Neil, would you be willing?
I second that. Quite possibly. I'm going to be challenged in
So this is real complicated, and I know he's got,
Late
you know, a lot of
November
great knowledge,
to
so,
mid-December,
okay.
I'm gonna be out of the country. but
So you're not gonna be able to do it this time?
Depends on the timing, and also depends on
You're-
Zoom, so.
You're in luck.
you know.
We're hoping to have proposals in by mid-December. For evaluation,
Okay.
So
So the evaluation would be
mid-December,
after the 13th of December. Perfect.
yes.
that work?
Now.
Yep.
Now you can
Noted. You all heard it.
It's all about me.
Yeah.
All those long questions, I was just trying to
I know
angle
it's in front
toward.
of you, but so we're going to publish a notice of a hearing that's gonna happen in your next board meeting on the 14th. And that's inviting people to come in and give comment about this exemption from bidding to use this method. And you might not have anyone show up, or you might have some trade unions show up saying, I think you should only hire unions and not allow others. You could have a contractor show up who doesn't do the CNBC, only does low bid stuff. It's you're gonna waste a lot of money on that. You should go with low bid people. So look, there might be people who show up. Respectfully.
And then one item to kind of touch on what Ron said in this line of construction, which is public funding. It is union or, gosh, I can't- yeah, prevailing wages. So it is livable wages that are set by the state of Oregon through BOLI to what contractors must meet to kind of level the bidding fields.
And then it would be at our next meeting after that, that we would give our approval.
Process in order to keep moving along on a pace that's appropriate. If we need to convene a special meeting or use your December work session for that purpose, I'm kind of looking to the team the purpose for acting on that.
Hoping that the action is gonna happen after the hearing.
So the approval of the procurement process will take place at your next business meeting. The actual awarding of the contract would take place later on down the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll forget.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, with the board having an opportunity to ask questions, dive deep tonight, intention was really just to put this before you, have the opportunity to ask these questions, come back, have that hearing. It will be, my recommendation that we proceed with this process based on the input that's come to me and Ron from people who are expert in this space. And so I don't see any reason why we would pivot from that. We'll post the agenda for that public hearing at your November business meeting. All right. Thanks a bunch, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Any to respond?
Yeah.
General bond update. We have just some financial information for you this evening.
Andy Campbell and Andrea Washington.
It's all good news for me. There's lots of money there.
Yeah.
So the purpose of this handout tonight is just to give you a glimpse into what we're going to present to the Bond Oversight Committee during our meetings. So each work session, you'll get an updated project budget. On the left-hand side, you kind of see where we have Fund 425. That's our main building fund. That's the fiscal year budget. That's the budget that'll match the adopted budget every year. On the right-hand side, you'll see the total project budget. Both of the right-hand columns on each of those will be identical, matching up with expenses and encumbrances up to the date of when the report's done. And I'll update it monthly. I usually update it weekly, to be honest, just to kind of keep track of everything. But my goal is to make sure that this team behind me can have as much fun as they want, but not have too much fun. So it's keeping track of the dollars coming into the district and going out of the district. That's our main goal. So we've set up, basically we're treating this project like any other expense coming in or revenue coming into the district or expense going out of the district. Yeah, the flow of the money through the office of the finance is already set up. We've made a couple of payments. Those payments went very smoothly, hopefully. Good.
Yep.
Without hiccups. So yeah. Any questions on the presentation of this? It should look very familiar. This is the same format that you'll get in your business meeting with the normal financial update.
So I assume if we want to see budget versus actual and see variances, that'll come out on this. Like if we were like 10% over 1 month for some reason, but this will highlight that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we're so very early on in the spending that there's just not a lot of data to show.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
When building our budgets, we use a lot of historical data that we've encountered, and it's, you know, projects that are recently in progress or completed. So we help be able to provide consultation on disbursements and how we categorize our costs. So construction costs, professional services, and owner costs. So those are basically the 3 categories, to which we then have many subcategories underneath that, where we keep track of construction costs. It speaks for itself. It's going to be the general contractor, their contingencies that we're holding, the contingency that we're holding for them. So within this cost total, we have about 15% contingency total throughout construction and professional services and owner costs. So professional services would be contracts like OTAC, the architect, we have a surveyor, we'll have a geotechnical engineer, et cetera, et cetera. Owner's costs would be like technology that we're purchasing for the new school, or furniture that we're purchasing for the school. So it'd be items like that that are things that are outside of the general contractor's scope, but the school still needs to open and operate.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Up as that third agenda item, we had the financial element. Wanted to leave space if there were other questions. We've spoken to the communications plan earlier a bit, but again, Andrea and Ron are here. If you had other questions generally about where we are, and otherwise, I'm really pleased with the work of the team.
Do you guys have any other, any fun questions? Okay. Moving on. Board comments. Does anybody have any board comments they would like to share? Linda? Terry?
Been a very bonding experience so far. More ways than one. No, I'm excited, super excited about all of this. I really can't wait to see the school, and you guys are all doing a phenomenal job. I can't even begin to go where you guys go with this stuff. So thank you. And thank you to all of you.
Thanks for being here. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Right, you, Frank?
Actually, I went to this Oregon School Boards Association meeting last night related to like legislative advocacy and so forth. And that's why I'm wearing my name tag. I don't know if Andrea, if you can see this from way over here, but I think we need to get a copy of our new logo to them, because when I saw this, I thought, well, that's lame. That's not our logo. So, and secondly, I wanted to say, Andrea, I thought you did an excellent job on that letter that she read at the beginning of the meeting. And I wondered if there was a way to get that, maybe since the city is putting it on their, or somebody from the city is putting it on their social media, wouldn't it be great if we had some social media that we could post our letter on? So just as a suggestion, put on Facebook or whatever social media sites we, as the school district have, I would suggest that.
Appreciate the insight. I think I'd want to give some consideration sort of offline with Andrea, talk that through a little bit around, how we want to approach this. But I hear what you're saying. The intention is really how we make sure that facts are present.
Well, it's not just the facts. I mean, I thought that was a very straightforward yet diplomatic letter. And so, I thought it would be good to just kind of get out there what, our point of view is.
If it's all right with the
Ours
board,
wasn't
I'd like to
offensive.
discuss that a little bit with
Some
Andrea
other person's
offline
letter.
and then reach back to the board, let you know our thinking.
I'm looking forward to the community engagements, and I was just curious if we have a calendar of events that will be posted, or
Andrea's got this, long list of
Okay.
already existing school events, which we want to have some presence at.
Okay.
On November 7th event.
We'll work with the schools. I mean, we really wanted to float it here first, just to make sure we were all comfortable with it. But tomorrow we'll get those on the bond website calendar and also pushed out, through all of our normal channels and emails and texting of parents. We believe targeting the elementary parents is going to create the most interest because they will see the new school. And then we'll have to work out with the school because they have an event also on the 7th. So we need to make sure that we don't, wherever we want to be and all of that gets worked out. So we'll work on it tomorrow. I thought I would work on it today, but some other, because I was sick, I can't do that. So I should have done it.
and think,
Decided on Tuesday, but that was the best.
okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to those. And I just want to say thank you to OTAC and OPSIS for coming in and working so hard on our project. Very excited.
Great project team, by the way. Just really. I've been to every meeting. I can tell you there's a lot of school districts where we don't see all the time.
Thank you.
Well, I have a lot I'd like to say, but I'm not going to say some of it. And so anyway, I just again want to thank you guys, and also, through that other process. So if there are proposals to evaluate and things like that that need to be ahead, I have that capacity where I'm going. I won't be traveling around, just be in one place. So we can work together on whatever communication there, assuming Tony puts me on that committee. So despite Craig's wishes, but yeah, thank you. And I want to also say thank you to Jimmy for his comments earlier and heads up, and appreciate it. Nothing.
Okay, upcoming meetings, we have November 14th business meeting, 7 PM at the district
Amy?
office. Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. Oh my goodness.
That's okay. I'm coming.
Quiet.
I'm coming to you from exotic places, so i.e. my front room. But I want to say that I'm very, very impressed by the progress that is being made on the middle school, and I think all the ideas that are coming in are just incredible. But I also, just on a personal note, wanted to thank everybody for being patient with me with all my health problems that I have been having, and appreciate everybody that's reached out to me and offered kind words and offered meals. And I got some flowers while I was in the hospital and whatnot too. So I just wanted to say thank you, and that's really, really appreciated. I know that everybody out there cares.
Good. Well, we hope we get to feeling better soon.
I hope so too.
Thank you for joining us virtually, and I'm sorry I forgot about you.
That's okay.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, November 14th business meeting, 7 PM district office, November 21st work session, 7 PM district office, December 12th business meeting, 7 PM at district office. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, who moved and seconded?